Now we continue our study of volume 42, Sutta Discovery, volume 42, chapter 7, or SD 42.7, which is the Thapati Sutta. The Thapati Sutta, or the Chamberlain Discourse, S55.6. This is a very beautiful sutta about stream winning. It's a short but very significant sutta about two people who are related to each other, who are brothers in fact, and they are very devoted to the Buddha, even more devoted to the Buddha than to their own king. So this is a very good sutta for lay people. To be a Buddhist is to try to be awakened in this life itself. This message is often forgotten today as we are caught up with so many rituals and superstition and various philosophical ideas and so on. So in a sense you might say Buddhism has become what we want it to be, so much so that it is impossible to awaken in this life itself. Generally speaking, it is. In fact, especially among the ethnic Buddhists, if you ask them what Buddhism is, they probably will quote some teachings of their own personal teachers, rather than talking about some universal teachings that the Buddha gave us. So once we come to this level, you might say Buddhism has become a rather atomized religion. In other words, it's split into small groups, and then you have individuals who have their own ideas. And on top of that, we have another major problem where we do not have a kind of regular teachers who run pastoral care for the Buddhist center or temple. Very often we get ad hoc people coming to give talks, which are not always, as a rule, not related to one another. And very often the monks themselves, especially living in the city, do not meditate, they do not know much Dharma. They mostly do chanting, especially chanting for the dead, and most of them are earning a living. So in a sense you might say we are living in very dark days. What is propping up Buddhism today is the support that it gets from the wealthy and the wealth of the faithful. So in a sense we can say, if you look around today, a lot of religion is defined by money, it's created by money. If you have a lot of money, you can build a center. Like in Japan, you find many fine buildings, and you can believe in anything you want. You can even say the Buddha came from Japan, and there will always be believers. There are devout believers in Singapore who believe just that, who believe in the new Buddha that's come from Japan. So you can imagine the difficulty it is if you really want to know Buddhism. So this is where we need to go back to the suttas, go back to the Buddha. We have turned our back to the Buddha, so now we've got to turn around again and face the direction of the Buddha. And how do we do that? We do that by looking within ourselves, by being self-reliant, and not to look out for teachings that are magical, that promise us power, that promise us success, without knowing what success really means. The greatest success we can have is mental peace, joyful happiness, happiness in the true sense of the word. When we work, when we struggle to live in the world, ultimately we are looking for happiness. So never forget what the end of the journey is about. So we get so lost in the journey, we forget where we are heading. So this sutta is a very important reminder for us. what we should think about, what we should aspire to as lay Buddhists at least. This also applies to the monks, if you like. I mean, if you are a monk or a nun and you find your difficulty meditating, you can still aspire to be a stream winner. But if you are good in meditation, your chances of becoming a non-returner, becoming an arahat is even greater. So, let us go into the sutta and look at the title, Thapati. The word Thapati can mean carpenter, some kind of woodworker, but here it refers to a chamberlain, someone who is taking care of the king's quarters, the king's inner chambers, if you like. Okay? So here we have two brothers. Their names are Isiddhartha and Purana. They are related to each other, and they're so devoted to the Buddha that when they lie down to sleep every night, and this is a very interesting custom we often see in the suttas, they will lie down with their head towards where the Buddha is residing, or at least where they know the Buddha to be. So there is a good sense of direction, in other words. And the king, in this case is King Pasenadi, tells the Buddha that his two chamberlains, Siddhartha and Purana, they are so devoted to the Buddha that even if the king were sleeping the other side, they would still direct their legs towards the king as long as their head is pointing in the direction of the Buddha. And it is very interesting because, as you know, in modern times, even the Muslims, when they pray, they direct themselves towards Mecca. So we do have this kind of tradition showing respect to teachers by directing our face, our head in that direction. Even Sariputta does the same thing. Sariputta shows his eternal gratefulness to Asaji, teacher who brought him the Dharma, the first teacher, that whenever he goes to sleep, he will direct his head, not towards the Buddha, but towards Asaji. So here again we see people who are very grateful to their teachers, even though in this case the teacher is not the Buddha, but rather Asaji, of course, is an arahat, is no ordinary teacher. In a sense, he represents the Buddha. So, and as you know, Asaji has great faith in the Buddha. It is on account of the Buddha that Sariputta has faith in Asaji. So it was like that. It's different today. I mean, if you say, "Oh, I have faith in my teacher, and I've taken refuge in teacher A, so I should pay respect to him," of course, paying respect to teacher is fine, but you do not take refuge. You do not go for refuge to any other being except the Buddha. Even in the Buddha's time, even in the suttas themselves, many of those great arahats will remind those people that nobody goes to refuge to anyone else except the Buddha. So these are basic things we need to remember. So this is a story of great faith, a story of a once returner and a stream winner. So here we have a bit of a story in the introduction. There's quite a bit of introduction here in case you're interested in details, which I can go into due to constraint of our time. But here we should suffice to say that Isiddhartha is a once returner and Purana is a stream winner. But when they passed away, Purana also becomes a once returner living in the heavens. Okay, let's go straight into the sutta, page 34. Originating in Savatthi. Now at that time, some monks were engaged in robe making for the Blessed One, thinking, at the end of 3 months, with the completion of this robe, the Blessed One will go on a walking tour. Right, so the 3 months rains retreat is going to finish, so this is probably around Now we are right in the middle of the rains retreat period, August. So perhaps around October, late September, early October perhaps. And the monks are preparing robes, one of which is to be given to the Buddha so that he can change his robes. And probably his robes are torn and he's going to wear these new robes and go traveling. And you can imagine the Buddha traveling all over India for 9 months of the year, 3 months in a arranged retreat. In other words, the Buddha is going everywhere teaching the Dharma. So very active propagator of Buddhism. Some monks, it is said, engage in robe making for the Blessed One, thinking at the end of the 3 months, with the completion of this robe, the Blessed One will go on a walking tour. Then the Chamberlain Isiddhartha and Purana posted a man on the road, saying, "My good man, if you were to see the Blessed One, the Arahat, fully awakened one, coming, you must tell us." After waiting there for 2 or 3 days, the man saw the Blessed One coming from afar. Upon seeing him, he approached the chamberlains, Isiddhartha and Purana, and said this to him, "Bhante," the workers are addressing the other 2 laymen, Isiddhartha and Purana, as Bhante. Bhante simply means sir, just like in our own local language, Malay word tuan. In fact, there is a book called Lord Jim, right? This written by this what's his name, Joseph. Joseph Conrad. Okay, so the title is Lord Jim. So the Lord here, according to the book, is Tuan. Okay, so Tuan Jim. So Tuan is simply a respectful term. People address one another, very common term. So, but we know it better as being used by lay people towards the monks. But actually, it simply means sir. Okay. So the workers addressed Siddhartha and Purana, Bhante, this Blessed One, the Arahat, fully awakened one, is coming. Please do as you deem fit. Then the chamberlains Isiddhartha and Purana approached the Blessed One, saluted him, and followed close behind him. So here, what's interesting is these 2 people, they're very respectful of the Buddha, so they don't stop him directly because he's walking along the road. So just follow respectfully behind. Then the Blessed One came down from the road, or from the high road. So came down from the road. That means the road are quite raised, and so we have a good idea. There's a bit of social history of Buddhism. The roads are a bit raised. Why? So that when there are floods, this road will be well above water level, for example. And these roads are maybe above the marsh and so on. So the Buddha comes down from the road, or the high road, and approached the foot of a certain tree and sat down on a seat that had been spread out. In other words, somebody prepares a seat for him. The chamberlains Isiddhartha and Purana then approached the Blessed One, saluted him, and sat down at one side. Sitting thus at one side, the chamberlains Isiddhartha and Purana said this to the Blessed One. Okay, so here we see these 2 brothers following the Buddha, and they wait until it's proper, convenient time. The Buddha sits down kind of comfortably, then they pay their respects and talk to him. So they are not talking, they do not approach the Buddha while the Buddha is walking, talking to the Buddha like travelers or tourists. So this is where you find this very wholesome demeanor of the monks. They don't chit-chat when they're walking, they walk very mindfully. So that's the time not to ask them Dharma questions, it's the time to calmly follow them. And this is what Sariputta did with Assaji too, you remember. So calmly, mindfully follow Assaji. And at the right time, in the case of Assaji, after he has finished his meal, then only Sariputta, even then Sariputta offered him some drinking water, and once it's ready, then the Sariputta questions him. So this is called respect for the teacher. the brother said, Bhante, notice they call the Buddha Bhante also. So the monks and the laymen are addressed with the same respectful term in this case. Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One will be living Savatthi to walk amongst the Kosalas, at that time we are displeased, we are saddened, thinking the Blessed One will be far away from us. But when we hear the Blessed One has left Savatthi to walk among the Kosalas, at that time we are displeased, we are saddened, thinking the Blessed One is far away from us. So here we see a bit of the Indian sentiment, if you like. They're very expressive with their emotions. And we're talking about a streamwinner and one Sutana here. They're not arahats yet. I mean, they do have some human emotions, if you like, which are not exactly negative, but showing deep faith. So they're saying, they tell the Buddha, when we hear that you are living, we say, oh dear, you're going to be far away, we feel very sad. And when you're over there, you are far away. And then they go on, they say, well, when you're among the Kosalas, then you're going to live and you're going to... So in other words, they're all the time waiting, getting news. Okay, now the Buddha is living Kosala for Mala country. And then when the Buddha is living, they say, oh, it's going to go even more far away. And then the Buddha reaches the Mala country of the Malas. They say, oh, now the Buddha is really far away. Then the Buddha stays there, teach the Dharma, then the Buddha moves on to the country of the Vajjis. So this kind of moving slightly northwards. And then when the Buddha is traveling, they will say, oh, the Buddha is going far away. And once the Buddha reaches the destination, they say, well, the Buddha is far away. So you see a bit of Pali grammar here, which is a very nice passage to the Pali grammar to show the continuous tense and the indicative tense. And then the Buddha reaches Kasi. Okay? And then the Buddha moves on to Magadha. And then finally the Buddha goes back. So now the journey is in reverse. So from Magadha, the Buddha goes back to Kasi. You know, the words change a bit, the passage changes. Section 13, but, notice the word but is there, but Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One will be living Magadha, or the Magadhas, Magadha is the country, Magadhas are the people, to walk in Kasi, or amongst the Kasis, at that time we are pleased, we are delighted, thinking the Blessed One will be near to us, or is coming nearer now, it's on its way back. So in other words, it's gone further, right to Magadha, and then now it's going back. Magadha is coming back to Kasi, and then from Kasi to the Vajjis. Vajjis to the Mala country, from the Mala country back to Kosala. Kosala, of course, is the kingdom of King Pasenadi. Look at section 17. But Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One will be leaving the Kosalas to walk in Savatthi, right, the city itself, no? At that time we are pleased, we are delighted, thinking the Blessed One will be near to us. But Bhante, when we hear that the Blessed One is residing in Anathapindika's park in Jeta's Grove at Savatthi, at that time we are pleased in no small way, we are delighted in no small way, thinking the Blessed One is near to us. So this is a feeling, a sense of presence of the teacher. And these two wonderful people, they feel so joyful just to know that the teacher is nearby, the Buddha is nearby, and they can approach the teacher anytime they want. So this is the faith of a streamwinner and the faith of a Vansutana. Vansutana, as you know, is a little bit more advanced spiritually than a streamwinner. Streamwinner has broken the three fetters of sense, self-identity views. He's broken that fetter. He's broken the fetter of doubt. In other words, he knows how to make self-effort, and he has overcome attachment to rituals and vows. Does not rely on any external agency, rituals, and so on. In the case of the once returner, the once returner has gone a little bit more. Maybe he's practiced a bit of meditation perhaps, or a bit more mindful, or maybe he has some wisdom. He has overcome a bit of the three roots: greed, hate, delusion. So it's a bit more calm, a bit more self-control in other words. But they're both married, by the way. They have family, and they're serving the king. So here is where it's good for us to remember that stream winners and once returner, they're just lay people like anyone else. And yet they can be very good people. So any of us, lay people listening to this talk, can aspire to be a stream winner. We should. Because this is the purpose of being a Buddhist. And later on, we'll see how this can be done before the end of the talk. Okay, then the Buddha replies. The Buddha replies to them, section 18. Indeed, Chamberlains, that's because the household life is a confinement, a dusty path. The going forth is like the open air. This is enough for you, Chamberlains, to be diligent, right? So here again, in almost humorous tone, the Buddha tells the two lay persons, say, well, you should know very well, right? I mean, that's why we are monks, As monks, we are free, we can go anywhere we want, but lay people, you are caught up with your household life, and so on. So that is enough to make you work hard to practice the Dharma. Then the two brothers, remember that they are spiritually developed people. One is a once returner, the other is a stream winner. So they said, there is Bhante, another confinement that is even more confining and regarded as truly more confining than that. Here it's interesting, we have someone that's almost as if countermanding the Buddha, saying, well, yeah, there's something worse, Then the Buddha asked, now what, Chamberlain, is the other confinement that's even more confining and regarded as truly more confining than that? And they reply, here, Bhante, when the Kosala Raja Pasenadi wishes to visit the royal garden or pleasure grounds, we have to prepare the Kosala Raja Pasenadi's royal elephants and to sit his consorts, one before him, the other behind him. And Bhante, the fragrance of these sisters, these two women, two queens, they are sisters, they're both consorts of the king. Now, this is again very interesting because if you know in the history of the Indian kings, they often have many wives. So sometimes the wives are sisters. For example, take the case even of the Buddha himself, coming from a Kshatriya family. You have Queen Mahamaya, then apparently the king also married the sister Mahapajapati. So when Mahamaya dies, then Mahapajapati took care of Siddhartha. So here the two brothers say, and Bhante, the fragrance of these sisters, in other words, they use this perfume, is just like the perfume casket that is left open. So are these women decked with fragrance. They use this very sweet perfume. And Bhante, the bodily touch of these sisters is just like that of tuft of down or soft cotton. So are these royal maidens raised in comfort. So here, these two lay people, they're describing kind of the pleasurable life the king is leading. Remember, they are lay people, so they are talking about this, how pleasurable life in the palace is. And Bhante, at times too, we have to look after or guard the royal elephants. We have to look after the sisters too. And we have to look after ourselves too. Yet, we know not any bad thoughts arising towards these sisters. So those, they have to work very hard, taking care of these two women, They never have any negative thoughts or thoughts of desire or anger towards them. This Bhante is the other confinement that is even more confining and regarded as truly more confining than that. So here, the Buddha says a household life is confining, a lot of household duties. So these two brothers say, oh, we know that, but we are working in the palace. And in the palace, we're even more confined. There are more things to do. We are talking about royalty, right? And if you displace a royalty, you might get into serious trouble. You might even meet with death. So what's more confining than that, right? So, of course, the Buddha doesn't mention living in the palace so often because not many people do that. Generally speaking, we would say it's a household life. So in a sense, when the Buddha says household life, he includes the life in the palace too, in other words. But here, we have these two people who are who are working in the palace. They're simply sharing their experience, trying to tell us that as a streamwinner and as a once returner, although they are working in the palace, they are in full control of themselves. They are at peace with themselves without any negative emotions. So this is a very good message for us. In other words, we can be doing any kind of job, any kind of work, any kind of occupation that's not against the precepts, not against right livelihood, or even if we are, by law, we have to say, do national service and so on. Of course, there's no killing going on, there's no war going on at this point. It's more just for deterrence. A Buddhist who is a streamwinner, who is a once returner, they will perform their duties diligently, wisely, effectively too. And yet at the same time, they are not negatively affected by all these things they do. So this is a wonderful lesson for us to show how even as streamwinners and once returner, we can fit into worldly life, into social life as lay people, not as monks. Monks are a different kind of world, if you like. Okay? Then the Buddha replies, the Buddha confirms what they are saying. Section 32. Indeed, Chamberlains, that's because the household life is a confinement, a dusty path. The going forth is like the open air. This is enough for you, Chamberlain, to be diligent. Right? So the Buddha is simply saying, well, that's my point. You know? So what's the Buddha is saying? If you look at more broadly, life in the palace also is included in the general or generic term of household life. It is still a confinement. Then the Buddha continues, now the actual teaching starts, section 23 onwards. The four qualities of a streamwinner. Now there's a bit of surprise here. Let's look at the four qualities. The noble disciple Chamberlains who has these four qualities of a streamwinner, not bound for the lower world, sure of liberation, bound for awakening. What are the four? All right. Notice the qualifications here. If you have four qualities of a streamwinner, or simply put, if you are a streamwinner, then you will never fall into the lower worlds. What are the lower worlds? Okay, you have, there's note 43 here if you want the details. Okay. So here we have the hells, which are the lowest and most painful state, the animal birth, the ghost world, in other words, the pretas, and then you have the human world. Here, human world refers to the more suffering aspects of society, like being reborn in some place with lots of violence, or being really, say, born in a very poor area of Africa and so on. And then even the heavenly world are said to be lower worlds because you have good karma, so you enjoy a happy life there. But once a karma is exhausted, or the time limit, the duration of life has come, then you will die from that heaven, you go straight to hell. It's very interesting. Right? It's like a game. In Monopoly, it says straight to jail. Right here, you go straight to hell because the karma is exhausted. It's just like you've been spending all your holiday, all your money, all your savings, you have no more money. So you have to pay your debts. However, in the case of a practitioner who have regularly practiced, especially in the case of a streamwinner, once returner, they are reborn in the heavens, yes. If they are reborn in the human world, it will always be some kind of family, some kind of situation where they are able to practice the Dharma, where the place is peaceful, or at least wherever they are, it is peaceful and they can practice the Dharma. So in other words, they are safe wherever they are reborn, even in the human world. And the next point is, sure of liberation, bound for awakening. It's a matter of time, 7 more lives at the most. It's like someone has qualified to enter the university, an undergraduate, and this person can study well, he attends classes regularly. So it's just a matter of time before he graduates. The graduate is the Arhat. Okay, so what are the 4 qualities of a stream winner? Number 1, here Chamberlain's, the noble disciple is accomplished in wise faith in the Buddha thus. So too is he the Blessed One. Iti piso Bhagavan. So too is he the Blessed One, for he is Arhat. Iti piso Bhagava Arahang. Fully self-awakened, Sama Sambuddho. Accomplished in wisdom and conduct, wayfarer, knower of worlds, peerless guide of tameable persons, teacher of gods and humans, blessed human. Wise faith in the Buddha, what does it mean? In other words, here you understand what is a Buddha. Why is he called Buddha? The Buddha, in other words, is an ideal of awakening. You know that there is someone who has awakened. It's possible among humans to awaken as the Buddha. That kind of faith. Okay? Not faith in the external agency, in the God, but the idea that any human being, if he makes this effort, he can become Buddha. Of course, the effort is almost superhuman, if you like. You can say that, but it is possible. And that is why we are so grateful to the Buddha, because in many ways he has gone through all the suffering, human suffering or existential suffering possible. And as such, he is an expert in all those human existential difficulties. He is able to tell us and teach us and guide us so that we do not suffer. We know how to get out of the suffering, and more than that, we know how to work ourselves towards liberation and true happiness. Number 2, he is accomplished with wise faith in the Dharma thus. Well taught is the true teaching of the Blessed One, right? Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo. To be self-realized, timeless. Yeah, timeless means when you really understand the Dharma, when you meditate, you begin to transcend time, so to speak. Anyone who's meditated can notice how time flies, for example. And yet, there is always enough time to do good. For one to come and see. Here, in other words, for us to test for ourselves. Not for someone to tell us, but we ourselves experience it. Accessible, leading onwards. In other words, anyone can practice it and it will lead you on to inner peace. To be personally known by the wise, you must cultivate some level of wisdom. As you study the suttas, your wisdom grows. As your wisdom grows, you begin to understand the Dharma better. It goes like that. The Dharma here, wise faith in the Dharma, it means you understand and you're confident in that there is this method discovered by the Buddha, taught by the Buddha, used by the Buddha, and he now teaches it to us so that we too will be able to awaken like him. And it's possible. There's nothing magical about this. You have to put in some effort, self-reliance. Then the third one, he is accomplished with faith in the Sangha, or the holy community of noble ones. Of good conduct is the Blessed One's community of holy disciples. Right? Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho. Now here the word Sāvaka is best translated as listener, because they will listen wisely, they get enlightened to listen. Here listening means understanding, wise. Okay? Here we have used the English word disciple. Of upright conduct is the Blessed One's community of holy disciples. Of right conduct is the Blessed One's community of holy disciples. Of proper conduct is the Blessed One's community of holy disciples. Is to show their moral virtue, their training, and so on. These four pairs of persons, the 8 individuals, are this Blessed One's community of holy disciples. Here, the 4 saints, right? It's not mentioned who these 4 saints are, so there's some theory that probably there's a passage missing here, some theory. Okay, this is discussed elsewhere in another sutta, which you can look up in the volumes on where we deal with all these recollections on the 3 jewels. Okay, let me just see if I can locate the volume number, ST volume number. Number 15. Okay, ST. It's probably ST 15. So there are different reflections there. You can look for detail. Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati, Sanghanusati, and so on. These 4 pairs of persons, the 8 individuals, are this Blessed One's community of holy disciples, worthy of offerings, worthy of hospitality, worthy of gifts, worthy of salutation with the lotus palms, and incomparable merit for the world. So here, this quality show that the saints are in the world, not of the world, but in the world, and we can somehow connect with them if we want to, at least in the Buddha's time. For us today, this noble community of holy disciples, the 4 kinds of saints, they can be monks or laymen, the 4 kinds of saints, the streamwinner, one-returner, non-returner arahats, shows that any one of us, if we practice the Buddha's teaching, we can become one of this true community. So it's not an exclusive club in other words. We don't like look up to the Buddha like a god who's empowering us, who's saving us, or who's forgiving us, and so on. Not like that. The Buddha tells us what to do, and we just need to do it, and off we go on this journey to self-awakening. So these first 3 are wise faith in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Not blind faith, wise faith. In other words, we investigate, we ask questions, we find out what do they mean, and how do we apply ourselves to these 3 ideals, if you like. Now the 4th one is slightly different from the traditional one. In the traditional 4 qualities of a streamwinner, you find is you can see in the front page. You can see on page 114, 4 qualities of a streamwinner. Here is given as accomplished in charity. Whereas in what is called the traditionally called the 4 limbs of a streamwinner, we have accomplishment in or of moral virtue. Okay, so this is, you can see section 3.1. Let me explain this in a moment. I'll just go through this passage first on page 38, brackets 4, the 4th quality of a streamwinner given in the Thapati Sutta. He dwells at home with a heart free from the stain of stinginess, devoted to charity, open-handed, delighting in giving, devoted to charity, delighting to have a share in giving. So this fourth quality of a stream winner given in this text is devotion to charity. Apparently it's the only text that says this. One possibility is that it could be a very old text, because once you have this repetition of set doctrines, they're likely to be later, just a possibility. So here, this fourth quality is devotion to charity, or more specifically, delighting in having a share in giving. So here we find these two brothers, whenever they know, okay, someone or a group of people are offering dana to the monks, they will always say, I want to join. Okay, here's my share. So this is a communal activity. So here is where you see in Buddhism, although in Buddhism we do talk about retreats and solitary retreats and so on, there is this important stress on doing things together as a community. So communal giving is often praised as something really worthwhile doing. Sariputta once said that if you give alone, then next life you'll be rich, but you won't have many friends. But if you simply encourage other people to give, but you don't give, you have a lot of friends, but you won't be rich. But if you both have a share and you encourage others to give, then you'll be rich as well as have lots of friends. So as far as you want that kind of blessing, so this is advice traditionally told to us. So on the other hand, we have this more common item 4 in the set of 4 qualities of a stream winner, the fourth one being accomplishment in moral virtue, which is the more common one that we normally know. Right? The precepts are really well kept. In other words, a stream winner will never intentionally break a precept, and if he does unmindfully break a precept, he would kind of confess it. He's not going to hide it. He's going to find out what happened and so on. So here, we find here the charity is the key word here, because it reflects in the case of the two brothers, because they are working in the palace, and they are wealthy, and of course, if they are wealthy as stream winners, they will definitely be very generous. Even Anathapindika too was very generous to the point that he exhausted his wealth. So, because of this great faith of the stream winner, who are willing to even give the very plate of food they are eating, they don't mind giving it away to a monk if a monk comes along, that the Buddha makes a rule in the Vinaya that the monks are never to approach families of stream winners, or where there are stream winners, or even a stream winner in the family, so that they will not die of hunger, to put it simply, because they're so great is their faith that they're willing to give whatever they have to the monks or to people who need it. This is their generosity. So there are two qualities here. So although we might say that the traditional 4 qualities are the 3 jewels and accomplishment in moral virtue, you must remember that also underlying all this, the stream winner is also very generous. He's a very wonderfully kind person. In no way a selfish person, in other words. So now the Buddha praises the two brothers. Section 25. Chamberlains, you are accomplished in wise faith in the Buddha, thus. And then the Itipiso verse is repeated there, the qualities of the Buddha. Number 2, you are accomplished with wise faith in the Dharma, thus. Well taught is the true teaching of the Blessed One, and so on and so on. The qualities are repeated. Number 3, you are accomplished with wise faith in the Sangha. And then the qualities of the Sangha are listed. And number 4, you dwell at home with a heart free from the stain of stinginess, devoted to charity, open-handed, delighting in giving, devoted to charity, delighting to have a share in giving. So here, in other words, from this verse, section 25.1, brackets 4, we know that in this sutta, these 4 qualities are given especially because of this occasion, the 2 brothers, because they are very generous. There's something else, 25.2. whatever in your family that is suitable for giving, all that you have unreservedly shared with the morally virtuous and good by nature. So there you are. As streamwinners and one sutana, whatever they have in the house, they're willing to share with others, even give them away. And there's something else, but they will give away especially to the morally virtuous and to the good by nature. In other words, they offer to the rightful people. They don't just simply blindly give away things. So, what do you think, Chamberlains? How many people are there amongst these Kosalas who are your equals with regard to partaking of a share in giving? Right? So he says, well, what the Buddha is saying here is, this is rare. I mean, it's not so common. Whereas you have laymen, streamwinners who are so generous in this way. So that, and the two brothers are very happy. Two brothers say, this Bhante is a gain for us. This Bhante is well gained by us. That the Blessed One knows thus of us. So he said, this is wonderful, sadhu. We are really happy that the Buddha knows us to be of this nature, and so in a way they're saying that it's amazing how the Buddha knows this of us. Right? It's as if the Buddha is able to read their minds. Right? Now the word rare here of course is relative, because if you look in other suttas, there are many other streamwinners in the Buddha's time. But of course, if you compare that to the population of the central Gangetic Plain or the whole of India, definitely the number is quite small, the proportion is quite small. In that sense, the streamwinners and ones that are rare, but they definitely number by the hundreds, if not by the thousands, by the end of the Buddha's life. And of course, if you go into the suttas, they will go mentioning countless numbers, huge big numbers of beings, humans and devas become streamwinners after the teaching of various suttas. Anyway, the point is, it is possible to be a streamwinner if we practice the Buddha's teaching. Of course, we're not told here how the two brothers became streamwinners, but elsewhere we have a good idea. I often mention chapter 25 of Samyutta Nikaya, S25. There are 10 suttas here. The first sutta begins with reflecting on the 6 senses, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, as being impermanent. And then there are 6 external sense objects, sense consciousness, they're all impermanent. And then you reflect on other things, even the 5 decades as being impermanent. So there are 10 different items you can choose from, whichever you are inclined to. This is the perception of impermanence. We should regularly practice impermanence wherever we are, whatever we are doing, and to whomever we are talking, regularly reflect on impermanence. Make it a habit, then you see the benefit of it, the effect of it. You de-traumatize yourself. When bad things happen, you say, well, okay, this all is impermanent. When good things happen, also you say, this is impermanent. So you value it more, you work harder to continue being good. And if you know people you care for are impermanent, you will learn to spend quality time with them and so on. And at the same time, the 8 winds do not trouble you, because you understand they're all impermanent, it's the nature of life, the winds will blow here and blow there. When you have gained, there will be loss. There are times when you lose things, there are times when you gain things. Things come and go. There is praise, there is blame. Sometimes people praise you, some people blame you. It's all impermanent. There is happiness and sorrow, joy and pain, again, all these are impermanent. And there is fame and ill fame. Sometimes we are really well known, sometimes people don't know us at all. It's all impermanent. So your life is so peaceful. You see, that's the nature of life. You cannot cling on to anything. Nothing in this world is worth clinging to. And if you reflect in that way, when the last moment comes, if you calm and peaceful, your mind bright with joy and faith, and you move on to the next life happily as a streamwinner. So the sutta ends here. Now let us do a short reflection. This sutta reminds us of two spiritually developed people. One is one sutana, the other is a streamwinner, both are brothers. So here again is a reminder our purpose of being a Buddhist is to at least aspire to be a streamwinner in this life itself. Because if we don't, we might lose this chance. In the next life, we might never get it and we have to wait for a very long time. If we do not study the suttas, then we always have the impression that it is impossible to even be a streamwinner, much less being enlightened. And there are other people and teachers who do not know the Dharma and the suttas, who will only affirm such wrong views. And this will only lead us to greater suffering. So the Buddha's teaching reminds us, the suttas remind us, in this life itself, we only need to aspire to streamwinning. So let us therefore aspire to attain this first stage of sainthood in this life itself. For example, through the practice of the perception of impermanence. With this kind of thought in mind, there is wonderful, good mental karma. But above this mental karma, may in this life itself we meet with joy and peace and success in our practice. May we prosper in this life, in this world and in the Dharma. Above all, in this life itself, we attain spiritual liberation, namely streamwinning. In this moment of peace, do let us share our loving kindness with all our teachers, those who have taught us Dharma, and also send out our loving kindness to our loved ones. May they be well, may they be happy. And also to all those people, to those the Dharma have not touched, may they be free from their ignorance and sufferings, and be wise and liberated. May you be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.